So it's Labor Day today. I got a to-do list about a mile long that I'm going to try to get done before we head off to a sheep show later. But I want to start it off by getting the cows moved into the back pasture today. So I went ahead and just opened up the feeding floor, basically put the gates both open so that way they have access just to both sides. Right now it really doesn't matter. I did that because I want them to only really come through the feeding floor whenever they're coming back here instead of this other gate that I drive through. That way they don't put any pressure on this other gate, you know, when we don't want them back here. Come on now. So with turning them loose back into the back, I'm gonna go ahead and hop in the truck and run back to the fence charger. I was back here last night making some repairs to everything, but I wanna go back and just check it again since I just turned them out. So that's why I wanted to come back here and check this back electric fence, even though I was here last night with it. It was basically a race back here. They took off. They're running around back here, just running around. Basically, most of them have all been back here. Actually, all of them have all been back here before. So they're just out running around. And with us just recently bush hogging this, I cut some other trails down through these trees just so that way we can do some more cleanup back in here this fall. And, you know, they've been running around on those. And, well, they came down here to meet me at the back fence. And I always know that's usually the first place they head to check out their perimeter. And something I didn't really take too much exception to yesterday after looking at it this morning with these cows out the way they're acting, I'm gonna go ahead and add another piece of this feedlot panel just to the bottom of that water gap, just because with how low the creek is, I don't want to take a chance of them going underneath of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in, and it should hold everything up pretty good for us. So earlier in the week, Rachel and me came down and we weed eated underneath the electric fence that we have set up here, splitting this off, checking out all the posts and stuff. We saw this one needed to fix, so I ended up coming back last night with extra posts to fix, and then we went ahead and I just was going to replace the whole water gap down here at the cattle panel that we had extra that I picked up at an auction. But I just went ahead and decided to try to fix the one that was there. It worked out pretty good. I think it'll hold up pretty well. And with me putting that other piece of panel on the inside of there so it will swing if we get any good rain here, it should last a little bit this fall. So one thing I'm doing going forward is trying to think about what happens in an emergency, meaning I went ahead and stuck 2 extra posts in right here just so that way I have extras for if in case any of them break. And then I have this cattle panel wrapped around the tree here and clipped up with some clips there just so that way it doesn't get knocked around by the cows and pushed over here against the electric fence. We come down and we got a lot of water running. And you know, as soon as the water starts receding, we'll be able to grab that cattle panel right there and put it across and use whatever posts are still available to us that don't get pushed over. And then that way we don't have an emergency on our hands of having to pull the cows out of this pasture to be able to fix that or go back and get supplies. Everything's back here, right here where we might need it. That's something we're kind of trying out. I'll see if that cattle panel ends up staying or if it ends up walking off. You know, who knows, but I really thought about this a little bit and just sticking these 2 posts in last night just because I walked back to the truck because I needed a couple more posts, and well, I figured I might as well just leave a couple extra here while I'm back here. here in this part of the pasture, back in the back, I bush hogged back here about 2 weeks ago, and we actually have some good grass growth coming back. I was kind of worried about it just because of how dry it's been, but there's a lot of good grass coming back for them. This area up here is pretty well shaded in the morning and in the late afternoon, so they usually hit this pretty hard. And this is the top of the hill just off of that corner part of the pasture we were just in. It was bush hogged at the same time. It's looking pretty good up here, but then when you drop down this hillside going down towards the creek, of course the cornfield here, our corn, all the moisture that we do get ends up coming down. You can kind of see that's where all the water would flow, and you can really tell that the grass is just a little bit more brighter green down there on that bottom. Of course, that's where them cows are at right now. Everything's a little more, looks a little drier up here, not as bright and as vibrant, but you can really tell just there's basically a line there. You can see it. They're down there in that right now, and they should be fine back here. I just more worry about them testing that fence too much because it's just, you know, 2-wire electric fence, but they've all been used to electric fence, all been basically trained to it, I guess you'd say. We've used it with them here all the way up until basically this last winter, just because there really wasn't a need for it. And we were putting off this move into the back pasture because we've been trying to get a back property line fence built. When we purchased the farm, the property line changed a little bit, and so it needs a new fence along the new property line. And we've had some people lined up for it, and you know, just with the weather and everything like that, and other jobs coming up for them, and just us being extra busy, you know, it's just been put off. I've talked to a couple of companies about it, and you know, there's 4 to 6 months out, which right now 4 to 6 months is January through March. So I mean, I don't really see them coming out and putting in fence then. So me and Rachel's talked about it, and I think basically what we kind of decided is once we get the beans off the field over there, we have gate access to that side of the creek. We'll just come in with a post pounder, and we'll probably end up just doing the fence ourselves. You know, just we'll have time, we hope, this fall to do that, and we know that it'll get done, and that way we really won't have to worry about a back electric fence any longer, other than when we separate out this pasture into multiple little paddocks. So last Sunday when I was over here feeding the lambs, I noticed all the cows were down here underneath this tree up against the water gap. One actually slipped through. Well, this water gap was never the best. It's something that was just here, and it went down across this creek underneath the tree, and it was always kind of pieced together, and we just continually just added little pieces to it here or there as needed. Well, the cows eventually pushed through because, as you can see, it's basically completely dried up under there. The creek's about 99% of the way dried. We've actually been adding water to a trough here on the feeding floor for them, topping it off every night. That way they have fresh, clean water to drink, and none of these little pools where all the algae grows. Gives them access to fresh water that way. So with them in the back right now, there's a couple little pools back there, but they just actually came back up here to the feeding floor after being back there for about an hour to get a drink, all of them, and then they headed on back towards the back. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't take another one of our big water troughs back there. It just kind of makes it a pain to move it back and forth when, you know, the cows are really only having to walk a couple hundred yards to get to this fresh water tank. It would probably take us a couple hours to fill that one up back there, just by the time we have to fill up a water tank and drive it back. So I'm not really sure what we'll end up doing. Have to think about that. But one thing I do need to do while this creek is so down is get in here and really repair this water gap. Because with the creek this dry, it'll be easy to get in there and clean out all the old existing wire and fence panels and everything. You can see they're just kind of all jammed in there. There's a panel on the other side. I set these gates up this last week just so that way I could keep them out of the back while I got that fence fixed. And so what Rachel and me have talked about doing, and we decided to just go for it, is we're going to go ahead and extend that water gap out to about here, and then tie it into the fence basically, so that way we avoid that pool around that tree. Makes it a little bit easier to work on. We're going to basically make it to a centralized fail point. I bought probably, I think it's 12 or 13 old corral panel gates like that at an auction. I actually got them for a couple dollars a piece because they're kind of beat up, and we decided to go ahead and do that and make it like the fail spot, because if it fails a couple times and gets all torn up, we'll just tear it down, throw it away, and put a new corral panel across that creek area. Because when the creek floods, I mean, it floods pretty good, but it'll be a little bit easier to work on while it's out here, because Right about here, the creek drops down into about a 4-foot wide channel, where underneath that tree, it's probably 12 to 20 feet wide at any given time throughout the summer when there's water in there. And that'll just make it a little bit easier for us to work on that water gap going forward. But that's just something I'm not going to do today. That's something we got kind of planned that I'm going to need to get on while the creek's this dry. So I got the trailer hooked up and just pulled it forward a little bit here so I can start loading up all the supplies for the show tonight. And I noticed that tire looked a little low, and once I hooked that air compressor up to it, it was extremely low. This little Milwaukee air compressor, man, has paid for itself. It's so convenient, runs off that battery, really handy to have. But I got the trailer all loaded up. So back here, it's gonna ride in the front of the trailer. We just got our little stand. I have this divider here that I made that goes across the back gate so we can open it up to let more airflow once we're there, because we're just showing off the trailer. Got an extension cord and the hose for the blower. And then we have our blower here, a bucket full of water, a bucket to give her some water. Got her evening feed, a little bit of hay in there, and then I got the generator here all ready to go. So what I need to do is I'm gonna go top the truck off with fuel now, go down and feed the lambs down there and check on the cows again at the bank barn. And then when I come back, I'll load all this stuff up, you know, in the back of the truck and in the trailer, so that way we're all ready to go. So I gave these guys a little bit of feed, called them up here on the feeding floor just to check them out. They're just hanging out around the other side of this other barn right here. Just wanted to check on them here before we head down to the fair, but they look okay. Still wanted to lure them up here. They didn't come as fast as I usually like them to the bucket. I think they've been down there in that fresh grass, but I needed to keep them a little lively on these buckets, so I actually cut back a little bit of the feed I normally give them. That way we can get them in here tomorrow, because tomorrow I need to take a steer to the processor, so we'll need to lure them up here then. You know, but a lot of times they come running whenever you start rattling them buckets around, but today they're a little slow. I actually had to go let them see the bucket. I don't know if they're just down there relaxing from, like I said, gorging on that grass or not, but we'll see how they do. We gotta get home and get finished loaded up. So we got her loaded up here in the back, supplies to the front. We're gonna head down to the fair. It's only about a 30-minute drive from here. It's just the county below us. So we'll get down there and get set up. So it's right at 10 o'clock at night. I just got done getting everybody at the barn here fed. I went ahead and fed this ewe's sister because we took feed with us down there because we knew we were going to be there for a couple hours before we were going into the show ring thing. So we went ahead and fed her down there, had water and hay and everything like that. But I went ahead and fed those other lambs, and especially the pen that she shares with her sister, fed her so that way she had time to eat and she wouldn't get in there and fight her for it. But I got her here tied up right now. We're working underneath some dim lights here in the trailer. I got the trailer lights on her. But she did pretty good for us. Like I said, this show, the ewe lamb here was basically just an accessory. It was basically a show featuring wool and wool design. So, you know, everything went pretty good for us for our first time doing it. It was nice to be able to try it out with a place so close. But what I want to do right now, before I go ahead and put her back in with her sister, since we just slick sheared her yesterday and she was out, she really didn't have a lot of contact directly with other sheep, but she was in an area with plenty of other sheep. From the Ohio State Fair, I sprayed them down with this Weaver wool grease spray. When we brought them back, it's something that I kind of just had read a little bit about. I really like this stuff. I'm going to hose her down with it, spray her pretty good off. And then in the morning when I come out and check on them, after the state fair, I noticed that they were really slick, like we had just sheared them, had that feel to them with that lanolin. That's what's in this, has a lot of lanolin in it and some other stuff. And that basically will help her against any kind of fungus that she encountered today. You know, just help her fight that off or anything and basically keep everybody healthy. But I'm going to go ahead and hose her off with this right now, spray her down and get her put up. It's been a long day. Got a lot done today, but you know, a lot of fun too. So we're going to go ahead and get her, like I said, sprayed off, put back in her pen, and then that way tomorrow I can go over and get the steer loaded up and get him to the processor. Well, that'll wrap this one up. Thanks for watching.